Jonathan Fido.
BBC Wiltshire. 7:15 on Sunday breakfast. Shock, disgust and anger. That's the reaction from the Wiltshire Islamic Centre following Monday night's atrocities at the Manchester Arena. 22 people lost their lives in the suicide bombing and dozens remain injured following the attack. Now, Wali Rahman is the secretary of the Islamic Cultural Centre. I spoke to him earlier.
Our reaction was the same as everybody, really, and all of the Muslim organisations across the country. And that was one of shock and disgust and anger at what had happened. So we thought we should convey our sympathies and show that we stand with Manchester and stand with the rest of the country in condemning this horrific murder.
Now, we've obviously seen terrible acts of terrorism in the last few years. Do you feel the Muslim community is being asked to apologise every time something like this happens?
I think to a certain extent, I think among the Muslim community there is a feeling of that. But at the same time, we do have a sense of responsibility, especially amongst Muslim organisations, to make it clear and make it known to people that, okay, these people who do commit these acts of terrorism and murder, they claim to be from our community. So in a sense, we do have a responsibility to distance ourselves from them and make it known to the public that, you know, they're not acting in our names and they're certainly not following the teachings of Islam.
Yeah, I mean, like most Muslim communities, you say, well, ISIS claims to be Islamic. It's not a form that you recognise. How do you feel when something like this happens? Yeah,
I mean, ISIS is certainly not Islamic in the slightest. And it's very important for people to understand this. And if we look back, David Cameron and Boris Johnson, they both clearly said a couple of years ago that we should even stop calling them Islamic State, because these are David Cameron's words. He said they're certainly not Islamic and they're not a state, so we shouldn't give them that credibility.
What are Islam's actual teachings on peace?
Islam itself, the word Islam means peace, and Islam, just like all other religions, it teaches peace, love, tolerance. The Quran clearly states that whoever kills a single person, it's as if they have killed all of humanity. And there are so many, I could go on, there are so many evidences of that from the teachings of Islam, and in no way does it promote any form of violence or terrorism or extremism. There's an article in The Guardian, published on 14th January 2015, it's called "The Role of Islam in Radicalisation is Grossly Overestimated." And we see even from some of the perpetrators that have committed some of these acts in the recent years, we find, there have been instances where they found copies of Islam for Dummies and the Quran for Dummies, in their possession. So this clearly highlights that these people are they themselves don't have any Islamic knowledge, or, they don't adhere to or even know about the teachings of Islam. In the world, there are about approximately 1.7 billion Muslims. If we look at the acts of terrorism committed, each one is too many. But even if you look at, there's a study by Europol, and they did a study of all the terrorist incidents in Europe between 2006 and 2013, and they found that out of those incidents, only 0.7% were committed by so-called Islamic terrorists. So it's very important to have these things in context and have the wider picture.
Wali Rahman there, Secretary of the Islamic Cultural Centre in Wiltshire, speaking to me earlier.